Call the meeting to order, pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I get a motion on the minutes? Have you had a chance to look at those?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? All right, unanimous. Business and minute comments.
All right. So we locked in electricity rates at 13.617 per kilowatt hours for a 2-year period with Calpine. Our last company, by the way, was Constellation. The contract price on their contract, and by the way, the copy of the contracts in your Google Drive is priced at a megawatt per hour. So when you look at it, you have to divide it by 1,000, okay? And I confirmed with them that they bill us in the kilowatt hours. So we are looking forward to work with our new vendor. Inflation for this month is 7.2%, and I think that's an agenda item also. And the state has a listing of all the inflation, and for the month of September, 7.2%. So moving down, I linked in all the encumbrances that were issued through today, so that you can look at that in an Excel spreadsheet. Now, also for general ledger, the cash balance of the district right now is $5.6 million. This balance is sufficient to operate the district for 1.8 months, assuming a cash burn rate of $3,098,000 per month. The towns of Kingston and Newton and Fremont, the school district, are current with their payments. We're anticipating the town of Kingston will be late with their payment for the month of November, which is normal for a town. This is because towns tend to receive a large portion of their cash inflows during the last week of November from mortgage companies. Okay. Also, as of September 30th, we recorded a total revenue of $28,550,026, and this doesn't include the use of fund balance to reduce the tax rate of $1.175 million. And I linked the report there. We will be updating the budget column of the report when the tax rate are set. The last time I looked, the tax rate of the two towns have not yet been set. However, both towns are ready to have their tax rate set.
Do you have any insight as to when the final taxes will be set?
The DRA told me that they were going to try to set them last Thursday and Friday. When I looked earlier last night, they had not been set. And I can look right now.
But it's imminent. It's not like weeks away.
Yeah.
They're going to be locking that in very shortly.
Yeah, it's imminent. Yeah, and really, the best thing they could do is to do it today, because the due date is 30 days from the date that they issue the tax bills. So they have to set the tax rate, issue the tax bills, have them due December 1st, okay? The longer they wait, the harder it is for the cash flow of the towns, which makes them more late with their payment for November. Moving back on to revenues. Notable revenues for the month are preschool tuition for $38,850. Adequacy aid, we received $742,281. And school building aid for $234,606. So non-health insurance expenditures through September were $7,360,654. And encumbrances were $22,206,659. The remaining appropriation is $2,194,081, or 6.91%. I've asked all the buildings to plan their purchases for the remainder of the year by entering purchase orders through to the end of the year. Notable non-payroll expenditures were $36,820 for the submersible pumps at Bakey, and we used prior year appropriation because those were purchase orders that were open at the end of last year.
Do we know now what the difference is on the non-health between what was encumbered in the last period to what's encumbered now?
So I'm trying to we're trying to reach out to a lot of the other school districts right now to go and try to figure out the best mechanism to do that, okay? What we're figuring out is we're gonna have to capture a snapshot of the system to, and compare it from month to month to actually pull that out. But I can give you, actually, if we look at that Excel spreadsheet that I gave you of all the purchase orders, that should list out every purchase order that was issued between, August and September. But they would be non-payroll.
Right, it would seem to me, and I don't know exactly how the system works, but if you are running a month-end number and you say to your system for the next meeting, what are the POs that have been issued since that date? You should just be able to get new POs, and that should equal what your new encumbrance changes are. Because you've already forecasted through your payroll, you've already forecasted through your health. You can have some differences in healthcare, but any big ticket items that would come out of that list of what's new POs issued since the last time.
Right, the purchases are gonna be very easy to do, because I can just list those out all day long. It's the payroll that's the problem, okay? Because the encumbrance gets updated after the end of every payroll. But once that payroll is run, the system deletes the history of that encumbrance. And so we can't make a comparison of what we had for payroll encumbrance prior, like say August. So this is what I mean by taking a snapshot of the system in August and compare it to September. So I can compare the payroll encumbrances from one month to the next. Because it literally deletes out the encumbrance for that payroll period.
But at that payroll period, it goes from encumbrances to actual spend, right?
Yes,
Because you've issued the checks.
right. But the problem is if you hire an employee in September, their encumbrance isn't included in August. And to find out the difference of that amount is very difficult to actually pull out because it's like a blob, all right? So what I'd have to do is compare the actual detail of that payroll encumbrance from month to month. And so this is why we're reaching out to other schools to see what's the best mechanism to pull the data. Now, I believe the data's in there. It's just how to pull it out. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, we should be able to figure out.
we should be,
How to
Wasn't
get
it
that
the
information.
software that we purchased?
Yeah,
yes,
Doesn't it support? Isn't there support that came with software?
there is.
Why we're not reaching out to them?
Well, what I'm finding out is that some of the business administrators that are local are better than calling support.
Support has not been good, it's been a very negative experience.
I can say that I understand what you're saying, and I've had similar problems in trying to explain to people I get to saying it's a new program, we think it should be able to do this, but I have certain things that you can only take a snapshot in time. And so I understand how that type of thing happens because I had a similar thing happen to me, so.
So Jamie, it's gonna happen, okay? We just gotta get the system to pull the data.
yeah, I mean, let's make a priority again. I mean, it'd be good to know what our changes are, and then we can be telling the community, this is what we've spent. Basically, here are the big ticket items that drove this month's spending. Here's the big ticket items that drove the next month's spending. And we're always on top of what that is, and we're always informing the community of the details.
Yeah, this is a program that's used by other school districts, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why you,
So who do we elevate the request to? If the support is bad, who do we elevate it to within that organization to get good support? The answer isn't just the support is bad, because you paid for something.
no, you're right, Rick, it is.
Yeah,
And
it
that's
is.
the next question.
Yeah.
It is, that's the perfect next question.
Yeah.
Asking somebody else at a different school may not get you the right answer, so.
We have had good luck with some of our colleagues in the area, and I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you completely.
Okay, health insurance expenditures through September were $725,356, and encumbrances were $3,967,481. The remaining amount is $750,209. The change in the remaining amount is the change in actual insurance coverage. So that means that like people change from a single plan to a two-person plan, or we get new employees coming on board and they're selecting insurance coverage.
So on insurance, I just want to point out, last month we had the meeting about the trustees and that took half an hour, 35, 40 minutes of the meeting. So we didn't get into the spending. The prior meeting, we had a deficit in the health spending where we said, geez, we're encumbering more than what we budgeted for. We're now showing not a deficit, but we have 750,000 unencumbered because an error was found in the payroll. And I don't remember if we had reviewed that in the meeting because we were so, tied up.
I can
in the
go over
trustee
that.
thing. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
If you go back to prior ones, you hear us talking about the concern about the fact that we're in a deficit position with healthcare, and this was very unusual. And it has then been found from looking at the payroll that there was an entry that was an error, and that entry threw that information off. It has since been fixed, and we're not in the deficit on the health insurance.
Yeah, so what happened is we have, 3 people who key in, all the data, from July through September, and it was reviewed by, the accountant and the HR director, and the dollar amounts were correct, but the problem is they put, the data entry person put the dollar amount of the school district's contribution in a percent field as opposed to a dollar field. And it multiplied the person's salary by 1,524%.
Mhm.
And just for the record, that's an example of where the support was very challenging because Matt, it took a long time for him to get them to figure out where the problem was. And I just want to reiterate again to Matt that Rick is right, that if we're not getting good support from them, we have to elevate.
Mhm.
It's, our patience has grown. We've been patient, we've been reasonable, we've been fair. It's at the point where it's not reasonable, it's not fair. It's been a year, right? If it's the first 3 or 4 months and we're all figuring it out, I think that I'll say it, I feel concerned that we're still having issues with the system, and I think that we need to elevate it.
Okay.
So make them in. Spend
Yeah.
2.5 days.
Yeah, put them in the hot seat right in
Just
the
like the
office.
sales
with
rep
people.
did when they probably can't sell you the software. right?
Exactly, yeah, we just talked about that the other day with student information systems, but that's another story.
All right, moving on. The state's working on setting the tax rate for Kingston and Newton. We filed our MS-24, which is the state revised revenue report, and I linked it here in this, and I'll bring it up in a minute. The state changed only a few numbers, which they only know at the time of setting the tax rate. The key changes are the Fremont School District tuition estimate, special education aid, and a new one-time revenue, which represents the return of contribution for New Hampshire retirement. So we pay a portion of money into New Hampshire retirement for our teachers and employees, and what they did is they returned a portion of that contribution back to us. And so,
That's good.
yeah, it's only one time. I don't want to have
Have you
everyone.
done this before?
They have never done this before. Historically, the state used to pay for a portion of the teacher retirement,
Right.
okay? They stopped doing that, I believe, about 2002. And the district has been responsible for the entire portion of the teacher retirement. So don't quote me on the actual year that it occurred.
No, I know it's been quite a while since they changed it.
Right.
They don't support that directly anymore.
Right, right. So it's kind of interesting that.
I'm just not familiar with them giving money
What's
back.
that dollar bill? I mean, that puts a big burden back on the tax base. huh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it
What's
was
it?
huge.
Well, I mean, is that millions or?
The state contribution. Well, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how much. It could have been, for a district of this size, probably about $500,000 to 600,000. That's just a guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Overall in the state, it was tens and tens and tens.
yeah,
That we were impacted by it. The theory they used at the time was, if you do it in the state, nobody's paying attention to the dollars, and then people are just allowing and agreeing to have all these things roll over and it gets up to the state. It's not being managed properly at the local level. Therefore, if we make it be paid at the local level, people will pay attention to what they're doing. That was the argument anyway, when they pulled the funding. But I just don't recall having them return funding. I recall getting revenue pool money back from insurance because of, under usage, because that's a pool situation. I don't recall this coming back from the state.
No, this is brand new. So, on the DOE 25, I want to point out that the, tuition for Fremont is, $3,570,000. They added an additional $107,962 to special education aid. I usually put in $200,000 because I actually don't know the dollar amount until the state comes up with the number, which is after I file this report. And then the other state aid, which is $167,905.
And Matt, I think we should point out, that normally when we talk about Fremont tuition, we're normally estimating about a $4 million number. Here we're estimating about a $3.6 million number. The difference is the number of students that will be enrolled. So the graduating senior class is much bigger than the incoming freshman class.
Yeah.
And that's where that difference is.
Yes. Okay, so the next thing is revolving capital reserve funds through September. I linked it here. The total amount is $1,568,802. Notable change in this report are we experienced our first loss due to investing. And also, I think there was a question previously about what the expenditures were in the facility use revolving fund, and those relate to the Wi-Fi access points. So I'm going to bring this up. And so the special education expendable trust is $241,237. That had a loss on investments of $206. The capital improvement and maintenance fund, that is $322,000. It also has a loss of $237.74. The unanticipated educational expense is $250,069.43. And that had a loss of $175.48. The unanticipated utility costs, it is now $74,993.57. It had a loss of $6.43. So facility use revolving fund has a balance of $142,027, and we receive $11,666 from SLC. Prior to September, we paid out $58,868 for Wi-Fi upgrades. At the end of last fiscal year, I think it's June 22nd, the school board approved 2.5 contingency fund for $537,817, bringing the total reserves to $1,568,802.
I will reach out to Brad, the chair of the trustee fund. And maybe my understanding was incorrect. I had thought that the investments were cash related and bonds, of which we weren't buying and selling bonds, we were waiting to maturity. If you're not buying and selling bonds and waiting to maturity, then I'm confused as to why there's a loss. So I'll reach out and ask that question. I'm sure there's an answer to it. I just don't know what it is. Because this is a September 30th balance, not an October 30th balance, and that was prior to having any decisions, as far as I'm aware, that's investing to stocks.
Yeah, and I think to be clear, clarity, since you said we had a loss due to investing, the school board makes no decisions on investments.
Correct.
Thank you for the clear.
Just so you know, when you contact him, we had to ask them for the balances, and they gave it to us on Monday. So it's not like it was automatic. Now, the final piece that I want to talk about is we're in the process of developing a detailed request for proposal for custodial services, one that includes all aspects of the assigned work, and we'll be bringing the draft proposal to the next facilities committee meeting. So what I'm envisioning is making sure that they understand, like, you know, they're wiping down all the surfaces in each of the rooms. They're wiping down, like, say, the water fountains, so they know exactly what's expected of them in that RFP.
Did you engage any of the teachers or the administrators within the buildings to get their input?
No, because we haven't, what we're doing is we're not gonna reinvent the wheel in trying to develop this RFP. There are other schools that have already gone through that process. So what we're trying to do is get copies of their RFPs, and then we can bring that to the teachers and the building and
Give them
principals.
something to react to instead of creating from scratch.
Yeah. Steal like an artist. What do you-
Yeah, yeah, but Rick's point is right, it's all about collaboration and culture.
Mhm.
If we're going to hire a company to clean, we should find out if there are any problems or areas that need to be addressed and include them in the RFP.
Or special things that have been getting done that there may be concerns that won't continue. with the
Continue,
process?
yeah, even better, yeah, I agree.
Okay, that's it.
Great, can we have a non-public?
Good.
Got something for you. I just didn't know if we'd have time, so I was waiting.
Well, we've got other things on the list, right?
Oh, I thought he said he was all set.
No,
I'm
that's just
so
the business
sorry.
administrator's comments. Sorry.
All right, I was just saying if we have 10 minutes at the end, I'd like a non-public, and we can squeeze it in, but if we can't, we can do it later, it's okay.
You talked about the electricity rates,
Mhm,
trust balances.
mhm.
Do you have any, budget adjustments? No?
No,
What about the manifest questions?
yeah, we can go through the manifest questions. So, okay, the first one here is that, you asked for a list of all the books.
Yeah.
And what I did is I provided a link to each of the invoices, so if you click on the dollar amount, it will actually bring up the invoice. And in there, you can see the list of all the books that are being purchased.
And
Okay,
these books are being purchased by who?
they're being purchased, okay, so this particular group right here, these are being purchased through, through the, oh my God. The name of the grant is escaping me. It's the one with, Sanborn and,
Oh,
something's like safety.
Well, maybe my question, you may make it simple.
I think Rick's asking the
Who's
process.
making the selections of the books?
This would be, an administrator who is in charge of,
we have a grant, do you remember the grant that we received that funded, it's designed to look at all of our community resources for mental health.
yes.
And so the grant funded an administrator, and the administrator's job is to assess, track data, and then make recommendations. She has supply money for books of this nature, and so she's been working with me and the curriculum director and the principals and talking about which resources to purchase. I wasn't sure if you were asking a funding question or a
No.
process question.
No, more just process, who's making the selections. That's it.
There, we do have different types. So sometimes we make selections for people and sometimes they ask for things. And it depends on the nature of the books.
Yeah.
So we can talk more about that later.
Okay.
There's a lot.
And just, I ask for books lists on every book purchase I see. We purchased $125,000 worth of books. Still buying a lot of books. One is I want to make sure I know what books are coming into the district. But two is I'm also looking to see if we ever did anything about the comments that were made at the time of the $125,000 purchase to get more books about our founding fathers, the Constitution, the Declaration, and these other formative items about the history of the United States. And so I look to see if any of those ever show up.
Were those comments from the teachers that are teaching classes or?
Well, that's the thing is that Jamie asked that question, and as we write the curriculum, when we purchase supplies for the curriculum, those purchases will come through more. That's not in the forefront right now. Because
Yeah,
the
I've
NEASC is the
seen that.
forefront, right, of our work.
Yeah.
So the NEASC visit is in just a couple of weeks, so I would say that as Jamie looks through book lists, it's highly likely he won't see a lot of those books yet, but it doesn't
Correct,
mean
I'm
it's
not.
not, It doesn't mean it's not, everyone agrees that we need to have good texts about those topics. It's not a contentious, it's just that we gotta get to it. And just for the camera's sake, to be clear, and any community member has a right to ask to know what books we purchase. And there's a process, if there's someone wants to contest a purchased book, there's a huge policy and a process for that, right? So it's very specific. And I just didn't want to, because you had said you wanted to read what books are coming into the district. Anyone has a right to do that, right, at any time. And then if somebody has a problem with that or a question, we start with the question process informally, and then formally there's a very extensive policy and process for removal of instructional materials.
Okay, so, the next question is, he believed that one item for $104 book is not reasonable, and he's correct. The first one was, it was 4 items, and I linked a copy of the invoice. The second one, for $313.48, that's part of an overall larger invoice. So to kind of like parse that piece out, it's just better to give you the whole invoice so that you can peruse through it. Okay. Similar to the next one down, $297.50. Similar to the prior question, it's a smaller part of a larger invoice. And so I gave you the invoice for that. The next one is the crane rental. The crane rental related to hanging the tree, the metal tree in the atrium. Did you see it?
No, I
didn't. Okay, so on your way out of here, look for the metal tree that's hanging out over in front of the window.
I think they were actually doing that on professional development day, right? Is that when they had?
That's when they were starting to hang it, yes. Yeah.
What's a metal tree just?
Oh, we've been working on this for a number of years. It kind of literally got hung up during COVID.
They got that far.
Yeah, it got left
They
behind.
leave it behind.
They left it behind. It's a massive, beautiful metal tree that has leaves made by the students. And it hangs, it's in the atrium. They're working on it tonight. You can see as you walk, when you come out of this meeting, you walk down the hall, you'll look up and there's a large tree and they're starting to hang the leaves.
So it's literally a tree made of metal.
Yeah.
It is
Okay.
literally a metal tree.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
beautiful.
think they were doing that when I came in.
Well, and it's tied to the artist in residence program because the students were making small metal trees. And then the shop classes got involved and they made a massive metal tree. So it's really cool to see like our shop and welding courses combined with art. So I gotta do my little pitch, it's just cool to see integrated curriculum out.
All right. That tree is super heavy, by the way. The next question deals with, it's a $3,000 invoice. Whether we paid for something last year, ended 4 months ago. No, basically, I've linked the invoice here. So basically, this is called Inblaze. I'm gonna try to bring up the invoice. This is just an update to that software, a renewal of the software, okay? And so basically what it's used for is grades 11 and 12 for ELOs to manage about 100 students taking internships.
And extended learning opportunities.
Okay. But process wise, why do we get, it was for last year. So it's for school year ended 2022, and we're getting a billing for that in September.
Hold on a second. The
It just
invoice,
seemed odd to me.
well, the invoice date is October, and we had to pay it by the end of November.
So you paid it in September.
I just wanted to check because it says in the invoice, this is 2022 school year, which is long since gone. Is that we already paid?
Well, did they
for
mean
2022?
2022 or
Yeah,
did they mean
I don't know.
22, 23? I think it'd be good to just
I know.
clarify.
Where does it say that on the invoice?
In the manifest, it says,
Oh,
contract for 21-22 school year. That's what triggered my
I
question.
think what it is it's a multi-year contract, okay? And they're making a payment on that multi-year
Can you double
contract.
check down that?
Yeah, absolutely. The next one is what equipment are we are we renting? So basically, these are all the copier leases. And so there's two parts of the copier lease. There's the actual copier itself, and then there's the usage of the lease. I mean, usage of the copier. So we paid $30,000. We paid $30,000 for the copier lease on this particular invoice.
Is that all the copiers?
This is all the copiers in the district.
$30,000 annually for the copiers, then there's a use fee for the processing.
I don't know about
Plus we probably pay the
annual.
toner, and I know we pay for the paper, we must pay for the toner too.
No, I think the toner is part of the lease.
Is
We
it?
pay for copies. Okay,
Yeah,
so, we have to pay for the paper. We're paying for the rental of the equipment and plus a certain number of copies every year. You know, a certain number of black and white and a certain number of color copies.
so these are the copier rentals, okay?
Yeah. The next one is about the asbestos inspection. And you would like to get a copy of the inspection? Absolutely. You can
Yeah,
have a
that's
copy
good
of
news,
it.
because Dan said he did the inspections when I talked to him, I don't know, a few weeks prior to this coming in, and then this is paying somebody else also to do inspections, so I was confused as to.
Is he authorized to do an asbestos?
I think
inspection?
he keeps track of all the known asbestos in the school district, if there is any, okay? And he's supposed to go out and do his own internal inspection, but we're also paying another company to do a 3-year inspection based upon a certain standard. And so we're,
I don't think he, I mean, unless, maybe you know.
Well, I would have to check
He
with Dan,
licensed?
because, well, Dan has a lot more knowledge, training, and
He had indicated
expertise.
to me that he was,
That he's
he was
licensed?
certified to do the
Oh, really?
inspections.
Dan has a lot of, he's an interesting, he has a lot, yeah. And he worked in the building
If
trade.
he's a licensed inspector for the state of New Hampshire, then I don't see why we would pay for it.
Well, I think that becomes a question of whether or not, let's check with Dan.
Yeah.
Right, we'll follow up on that and get back to you. I agree with all the questions, I just don't want to speak out.
Yeah,
But I do, Dan's an interesting guy because he has expertise that you'd be surprised by because he had a career in construction prior to his work in the Secret Service. So it's really interesting, and sometimes he surprises us, that's all I'm.
surprises you with like origami and stuff.
Yeah, and he does it with sheetrock origami, it's pretty amazing,
Look at this goose.
yeah.
I think that's it.
Guy's the best drywaller I've ever worked with, literally, he's amazing.
He's not French Canadian.
Done.
I used to build houses, and they used to come in on stilts and just amazing. So that's the last one. So Tom, if you've got a non-public, do you know what the numbers are?
Well, you're being recorded right now, so we'd have to go.
Well, we-
Motion.
Yeah, he's asking for the motion, the RSA 91A dash,
Oh, I can.
it's on the school board agenda, if somebody can pull it up.
Same ones that-
Let me pull one up and I'll read it out.
What the letter would just say negotiations, I don't remember the letter.
Oh, negotiations?
Mhm.
Oh,
I can do it.
it's, actually, no, you're gonna have to pull it up, because that's not gonna be on the agenda.
No, not from the school board. The same RSA, correct?
It's the same RSA, but it's
I
not,
moved to, you want to say it?
Yeah.
I moved to go into non-public section RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2.
This is for negotiations, so roll call vote.
Yes.
Maura?
Yes.
Rick? Jamie? Yes, all yes. Unanimous. So we'll go into non-public. Matt, you can turn the cameras off.